Hi everyone, thanks for being with me. Sometimes people act badly in all sorts of ways, and recently I came across a video in which the Young Turks leader and founder Cenk Uygur, I believe, acted badly. And I'm going to play some of this clip from you where he's having a chat with his co-host Ben and another colleague about Israel's invasion of Gaza and what it means. And Ben, in particular, is an Israel Jew and had a specific different view than that, than the view, I guess, that Cenk had. And as a result of that, Cenk decided to act pretty badly. Now, the thing to remember here is that Ben is an employee of Cenk. And to think that someone acts in the way that Cenk behaved is somewhat frightening. And I'm wondering whether at the end of this particular segment with these two guys, whether or not Ben still had a job. However, even though Ben was extremely right in his view, right as in politically right, in relation to his view to Israel's bombarding and destruction of Gaza, remains to be seen. But there are some arguments he does put forward that I think deserve to be listened to. But in this particular segment I'm showing you, you're not going to hear a lot about what Ben's views are. You're just going to be able to see how Cenk behaved. Now, what he could have done was just to simply get Ben to expand on his views, ask some appropriate questions and challenge Ben. But Cenk didn't do that. Cenk, who is someone to some degree I admire for setting up TYT and becoming the organisation that they have, and also because they sit very much on the left of politics, and they're really progressive. I don't like some of the things that Cenk says. I think he's too outlandish on many occasions. He seems to hate everybody, whether you're on the left or the right, except if you're Bernie Sanders. And he tends to be rather dogmatic, to say the least, in relation to how he views many, many issues. And in this particular case, he loses it. And he loses it big time. So I've got some examples here of watching Cenk lose it.
Why is it that they're so insistent on continuing to unconditionally support this genocide, yet state they want a two-state vision? So it's sort of like I have to question whether they want a two-state vision, and if so, what would that look like?
I'd be happy to answer that.
Please.
There's so many things I disagree with that both of you said.
Good.
That I would love to address all of them. First of all, Ramesh, you just said you understand in certain ways the illegitimacy of Hamas. They're a terrorist organization that rapes people as a matter of public policy and as the way to resist.
Fact.
What you're still using is genocide and ethnic cleansing, neither of which make any sense or hold the muster of fact. If you've ever been to Israel, have you been to Israel?
Why would I go to a barbarous country that imprisons 5 million Palestinians and never lets them go and brutalizes them, murders them at every turn?
If you've been
so why would I go to that country? Are you insane? No one go to Israel. You should never go to Israel until they end the occupation, and then we love them and we go back.
It's an incredible nation, and it's the only democracy in the Middle East that
democracy.
And you all the time use that as the example of why they should be held to a different standard than Hamas. You talk out of both sides of your mouth on this issue constantly. You say they're a democracy, so that's why they have to be held to a different standard. Then I call them a democracy, and you laugh mockingly at the only democracy that is our allies in that region. It's so ridiculous and egregious. And despite all of the evidence shown and all of the tactics that the IDF takes under the advisement of what it needs to do to try to attain its objectives militarily, it does a litany of things that no other nation does. It's an average of 2.5 civilians killed to military combatants compared to a typical ratio of other wars that is much higher compared to American wars that's 10 to 1, 12 to 1. Yet those numbers do not bother you. You say
what
that
do you mean they don't bother me? I did a decade of shows against that.
Those numbers don't affect your opinion of what's going on now, I meant to say. And you then also just make up that they're clearly trying to get the Gazan people into Egypt and displace them when that is not true. There have been some insane statements from some elements in the Israeli government that are not the official position of the government, that is not not what the statement of
He just said
Netanyahu
from the river to the sea.
He said from the river to the sea, they need to have control of their security. What are you talking about?
That's exactly what the Palestinians say. When we say from the river to the sea, they say it's political. But when it's a Muslim,
exactly not
genocide. You know they didn't actually do it. When it's Israel, when they're actually doing the genocide. No. From the river to the sea, as they're in the middle of the genocide.
That is
you
such
think,
an
no big deal, no big deal.
That is such an ignorant statement. When the Palestinians say from the river to the sea, they literally are saying without Jews and Israelis living there and pushing them into the sea.
Because this monster is actually killing them, butchering them.
That's why you've condemned the statement.
You've got a theoretical statement on one side, and on the other side you're actually butchering.
So why did you condemn the statement? Because you know that's what it means. That's why you condemned it.
Why don't you condemn Netanyahu, that monster who just said from the river to the sea?
Because he's not saying that they need to displace the Palestinians.
Get out of here, Ben. You're the most biased man in America.
And I do condemn Netanyahu.
The Muslims can't say it, but the Israelis can say it all day long as they do it. They're murdering Palestinians as we speak.
They need to disavow a fundamentalist belief that wants to kill all Jews as a disease and not allow them to live. That might not bother you, but it does bother me as an Israeli Jew.
That's such a weak excuse.
I'll tell you why. My people,
yes, I'll tell you why.
Please.
Because you always hide, like as if Israel's the tiny little country.
It is.
And they're so defenseless. They're so, oh my God, they can't do anything against the all-powerful Palestinians who they imprison and take away their water, power, electricity, murder them at all terms, etc. No. If someone was actually trying to kill the Jews, Ben, I would line up in the front line with you. Are you crazy?
They just did that on October 7th.
Exactly. So you go and we
talked about how I was there. They just killed a bunch of people.
So why don't you care about Palestinian lives, Ben?
Of course I do.
24,000 dead, 10,000 children.
Of course I do.
You don't care about them. You don't care about them at all.
Cenk, you can shout all you like, but you are the one condemning them to murder. So why don't you care about their lives?
Condemning them to murder?
You're condemning them to a never-ending cycle. Palestinians
is being made to kill them.
Palestinians. You are condemning Palestinians to murder. Because every time I suggest that you put any pressure or the world puts any pressure on Hamas to stop, you say they're terrorists. You can't ever tell them to stop. So you can only tell Israel to stop, which, as you know, for a goddamn fact, means that this war will end, Hamas will regroup, they will kill more Israelis, and Israel will kill more Palestinians. And that's what you want. That's what you're advocating for.
Insane, Ben.
That's exactly what you're advocating for.
I want a two-state solution where you actually have peace.
So do I.
But not Netanyahu.
That's a horrible statement he makes, and that should not be the position.
Terrorist, right?
But you add, no, not terrorist.
Of course he's a terrorist. He just said from the river to the sea, and he's actually doing it.
He said
he's 20 times the terrorist that Hamas is.
I will be with you if he actually encourages.
He's doing it, Ben. What more do you need? 48,000?
Not one person's been displaced out of Gaza.
Are you insane?
Out of Gaza, not one.
Out of Gaza, sorry. It's squished into a little corner where they're being bombed.
That's what you're saying he's doing. Why doesn't Egypt allow any refugees?
Because that's the displacement.
No, voluntary displacement, like happens in every war. At the beginning of
voluntary. Did you just say that was a voluntary displacement?
What was? No, if the possibility of going into Egypt would be voluntary, like in the first month of the Ukraine-Russia war, 5.9 million people were allowed in, but for some reason, the Gazan people's neighbors, their fellow Muslims, don't allow them in, not one person. They condemn them to death.
That's the ethnic cleansing when you drive them from their homes.
During war, temporary.
Now, let me know what you think of that video, whether or not you think that Cenk did lose it, whether it was appropriate or not, whether or not you agree with Ben. What do you think of the way Cenk behaved? And the reason why I'm producing this particular video is that I want us to think a little bit more about how we go about confronting those people whom we're interviewing, or who have at least a conversation with us about issues which we may disagree. And that at some point we need to understand that sometimes we just need to back off. We just need to take it a little bit easier. We need not be as rough and tumble as perhaps what Cenk would like to be on this occasion. And that perhaps other people have views which we may not agree with, but which we could at least pay the courtesy to listen to them. Now, in this particular instance, as you saw, Cenk gets a wee bit carried away. He becomes somewhat, I think, aggressive in relation to what Ben was saying, even though to some extent Ben remained reasonably cool, I think, under these circumstances. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Remember to subscribe and also make sure that you take care of yourself and others and that you're safe.